Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Efficiency. I'm going to show you a cool, fast way to make kingfish rigs. I really like fishing for kingfish. They're really fun fish to catch, scream drag, pretty cool fish, but you kind of have to make a special rig for them because they're a very toothy critter, kind of like a wahoo or something. And if you don't use something that's kind of abrasion resistance, they'll cut it. And basically there are three options. There is single strand wire, there is titanium wire, and there is 7-strand wire. So the rig I'm going to show you is a really fast and efficient rig, and it uses 7-strand wire. I personally don't like single strand wire. I've had too many issues with it breaking, and not just like, oh, you tied a bad knot, and they're like middle ways in the rig, it'll get a kink and break. It's just not very reliable to me. I mean, maybe if you use really heavy stuff, it'll work good, but I don't want to use really heavy stuff just to make it work. I can use 40-pound 7-strand wire, and it's flexible, it's quick to rig, and it hasn't failed me. Now, titanium wire is pretty cool. I've used it, and in terms of reliability, it's really good. I mean, it's not supposed to kink, which I've had it kink after a lot of fish hit it. You get a lot of good uses out of it. But it's expensive and it's kind of time consuming to rig. They say you can tie a knot to it. I don't really like doing that. I prefer to crimp it, and that's just time consuming and a lot more complicated. The rig I'm going to use is pretty simple. You might have heard of it. Some people call it the 60-second kingfish rig. You can tie it under 60 seconds. I mean, even if you're not that good, you do it a couple times and it's easy. What I do is I'll take a piece of wire about the length of my arm. That's my measuring device. That works for me. And then I'll cut it there, take that piece, and I'll take my hook. I'll take the wire, run it through the eye so that some of the wire is laying on the flat side of the hook. Because a hook, the shank of a hook kind of comes to a point and it's flat on the top. If this is where the eye of the hook is, you've got this flat part. So your wire needs to be along that flat part. Then I take the long part of the wire and I go back and wrap it around the shank 5 or 6 times. Once that's done, I go back through the eye, along the flat part, go back through the eye and pull it tight. It'll look just like this. Then I'll slide the next hook on. It can be a treble hook or a J hook. Typically, I use a small J hook and then a treble hook. It seems to allow the bait to swim a lot better, a lot more freely, and it looks better. Now that being said, if it's a really good bite, it won't really make a difference. If the fish are hungry and they're biting good, if you run 2 treble hooks, you'll probably have a better chance of staying hooked into the fish. Like if you have beginners or you're a charter guy and you got new people, using 2 treble hooks, it's more forgiving on the angler because you got more gripping into the fish. But typically I use that J hook and then the treble hook. So then I'll slide that down. I usually use my hand and just say, okay, a bait fish is typically this big. I want my hooks this far apart. So I'll slide my hook right there. And then I'll do the same thing. I'll start wrapping it around the shank 5 or 6 times and then run it back through the eye and pull it tight. Okay, so the next part is where we really get into the efficiency. Most people have a kingfish rig. They have a couple hooks or maybe 3 hooks, and then they have their wire and it goes up to a swivel. I don't tie mine to a swivel, not yet. Instead of having a bunch of kingfish rigs with swivels on the end and then tying my mono main line or leader to that swivel when I need it, I actually tie the swivel to the mono. And then when I need to replace a rig, I cut it right there on the wire side where it's tied to that swivel and tie a figure-8 knot on my wire to the swivel. You see, we use these tiny little swivels, and it's actually more time consuming and harder to try to tie like a uni knot or blood knot or something to that swivel than it is to tie a figure-8 knot on the wire to the swivel. The figure-8 knot's pretty simple. You just bring one in through the eye of the swivel, you come down, wrap it around that wire main line, and then pull it through the hole you just made, and you'll see an 8, hence figure-8, and I pull it tight. Now there's another figure-8 knot where you actually do that 8 thing, and then you run it through your swivel, and then you trace that 8 back through. I don't do that for Kingfish. I used to do that, and someone showed me this quicker figure-8 knot, and it was a charter guy, Captain Eddie, who's been in some of our videos. And I was like, man, this knot looks weak, but he'd been using it, he's a charter guy, and that's what he uses, and it works great for him. So I started using it, and I haven't had any issue with the knot pulling. Rather than my anglers having to tie like a mono knot, and usually when you try to do it on that small swivel, it'll slide over the swivel. You won't get a good knot. Some of the coils will be over the swivel instead of over the main line. So I just simply tie that knot on the swivel. I'll leave it there all day. Throughout the day, I'll just retie figure-8 knots on my wire to that swivel. That saves me from having to put a swivel on every Kingfish, rig I have. All I gotta do is put 5 or 6 swivels on my main line to start the day. And then as I go out throughout the day, I'll just cut wire, put new wire rigs on, go from there. So 60-second knot, followed by a figure-8 knot. And, that's all there is to it. It's fast, it's efficient, it's worked really good for me. So if you got any questions or any tips, or, let me know what you're doing, be curious to learn, just leave a comment below. I'll put some links for the equipment that I'm using, the type of wire and the hooks, stuff like that. I don't have a particular go-to hooks, but there are a few I like. I'll put some options down there. And, if you got any preferences, tell me what you like, and, we'll figure it all out. Also, for more videos, subscribe to us. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. And I'll see you next time.